Late one autumn night, Emma moved into an old Victorian house she had inherited from a distant relative. The house had been abandoned for years, and its silence weighed heavily on her as she unpacked boxes in the dusty, dimly lit living room. The house was enormous, with long, creaking hallways and rooms that seemed to stretch on forever. That first night, as Emma settled into bed, she heard it, a soft whispering, like a low murmur coming from somewhere in the walls. At first she thought it was just the house settling, the old timbers shifting with the cold. But the whispers grew louder as the night wore on. It wasn't one voice. There were many, all speaking in hushed tones, like a crowd gathering in the darkness. Terrified, Emma got out of bed and pressed her ear to the wall. The voices sounded like they were right behind it, too close for comfort. Then, one voice broke through the others, clear and chilling. "Help us." Emma's heart raced. She pulled away from the wall, her mind racing with confusion. Who could possibly be in the walls? The house had been empty for years. The whispers continued for several nights, becoming more desperate, more frantic. Sometimes she could almost make out words like "trapped" and "never leave." The more Emma tried to ignore it, the louder and clearer the voices became, until one night, they weren't whispers anymore. In the dead of night, Emma awoke to a sound, a scratching. It was coming from inside the wall, right next to her bed. The sound was frantic, like something or someone was trying to break free. Terrified, she jumped out of bed and ran to the hallway, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The house was silent once more, but she could feel the air growing thick, heavy with something that didn't belong. Then a door at the end of the hall, one she hadn't noticed before, creaked open slowly. Her legs froze, unwilling to move, yet she found herself walking toward it as though something were pulling her in. The door swung open to reveal a narrow, pitch-black staircase leading down into the basement. The whispers returned, louder now, pleading for her to come closer. Against her better judgment, Emma descended the stairs. The air grew colder as she reached the bottom, where the walls were lined with old, rotting furniture. The voices were deafening now, urging her to look, to find what they were asking for. In the corner of the basement, hidden beneath a tattered sheet, was an old, wooden chest. As Emma lifted the lid, she recoiled in horror. Inside was a collection of old yellowed diaries, each one inscribed with the names of the house's previous owners. And beneath them, the skeletal remains of a child, curled in a fetal position. The whispers ceased at once. Emma's hand trembled as she reached for the diaries, and as she opened the first one, a name jumped out at her: Emma. The page was filled with frantic, scrawled words. "Don't trust the walls, they're alive." Suddenly the house groaned, and the walls around her seemed to shift, like they were breathing. Emma felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over her as the temperature dropped, the air turning impossibly cold. She ran back upstairs, but it was too late. The whispers were no longer confined to the walls. They filled the entire house, growing louder, more insistent. And then, she heard it again, the same voice from before. "Help us, or join us." In the darkness, the door slammed shut behind her. Hope that gave you the chills.